Hi, everyone. My name is Sandy Wild-Sutton, and I'm an occupational therapist with TheraPlay, one of the companies that a family of companies that we work with to do our webinar today. We will be talking about typical development from the ages of birth to 2. So welcome and enjoy today's webinar. And this is Tiffany.
I'm Tiffany Minnick. I'm a physical therapist. I've worked in pediatrics for 12 years. So Sandy and I will give you guys all an insight on some typical development. We have some great videos, and we hope you enjoy. Definitely ask questions along the way. If we don't get to them during the video, we will absolutely answer them at the end. So enjoy.
So we're just having some technical difficulties. It'll be one moment until we get our first slide ready to go. But one of the things that we're going to talk about is really from the beginning. When you bring your child home, it's such an exciting time. There's so many feelings. You've waited 9 months for this bundle of joy, but the day you bring them home, you're suddenly on your own. And it can be very nerve-wracking. And all of a sudden, you're totally in charge of everything that this baby needs, from taking care of getting them fed, organizing their sleep habits, and making sure that they develop. And even when you have a background in development, it can be a time of high anxiety to make sure that you're meeting your child's needs. From the very beginning, they come home, maybe that first night didn't go so well, maybe you're planning to breastfeed and you're having trouble latching on with the baby and it's not going as smoothly as you'd like. Maybe you've chosen a formula that your child doesn't seem to do well with. So today we're going to go through a lot of those kinds of things. What can you look for to know that you're doing a great job parenting? And then if there are some things that you have concerns about, we're going to give you some of those talking points with your pediatrician so that you can have that conversation with some background knowledge about what should be happening for your child and ask some intelligent questions to have that conversation with your pediatrician about what your concerns are about. I know when I went to the pediatrician with my kids, I used to make lists before I went in so that I would remember everything that I wanted to talk to, because you get there and you're a little tongue-tied about what you want to talk to your pediatrician about, and they have their list of things that they need to do, and they're on a quick schedule because they have a lot of kids to see in the day. And so many times they walk out of the office and you're like, oh, darn, I didn't ask him about this, this, and this. And that's something that I really wanted to talk about. So hopefully we're going to give you some of those talking points today. So our key objectives for the day is to review the milestones that children should meet in their first 2 years. We're going to review the activities that you can do at home to promote those developmental milestones. We're going to provide you resources if you do have concerns about your child's development. We do want you to save the questions for the end. We will have an opportunity to use the chat box at the end. And please join us for our second part of this series on June 13th at 12 p.m., where we're going to be discussing development from ages 2 to 5. So feeding is one of those first things that you have problems with or that you have to be concerned about. So let's talk a little bit about those optimal positions for feeding. You want to position your child with their tummy against your tummy or their chest against your breast if you're going to be breastfeeding. And if you're bottle feeding, this is still a pretty good position for your child so that you get some of that cuddle time. Feeding is a really important time for your child to just get some tactile information. And although you're working on feeding, you're also working on developing some of their other sensory systems. The baby's ear, shoulders, and hips should all be aligned while they're eating. Arms and hands should be around the breast or around the bottle. And remember, tummy to mummy, nose to nips. Flex those hips to open those lips. Some big feeding hints are to look at what's going on with your child's sleep. If they're in a deep sleep, that's not the time to try to feed your child. A light sleep state, if they're just starting to wake up, that might be a time to start beginning feeding. You really want your child to be alert. They should be quiet. Their body is still. Their eyes are fixed and focused. They're starting to feel a little restless. They might have their hand in their mouth. Their eyes are open. This is a great time to feed your child. If your child's crying, you really want to get them calm before you try to eat. Don't try to feed a child that's really screaming or really upset and out of control. You want to try to get them calm before you start that feeding process. That way you're going to have the most success. Some of the feeding milestones that you might see, certainly in the first 0 to 3 months, you're breast and bottle feeding your child. Their oral reflexes for sucking and swallow are starting to develop, and they should be able to achieve a really good lip closure around that bottle or around your breast. If your child has a lot of leakage, then they're really not getting a good mouth closure around either the bottle or the breast, and that could be a sign that you want to try to find somebody that might be able to help you get a better suck swallow pattern on the bottle or the breast. You can look at a lactation consultant to do something like that, or a speech and language therapist can assist you with that. From 4 to 6 months, you're going to see that your child's going to do a little bit more sucking. You may see those fingers go in their mouth, their thumb going in their mouth, and it's a time that you're going to start to introduce to soft, solid foods. They're going to open their mouth and get ready for that spoon to be presented. They should definitely have their hands in their bottle, almost as if they're starting to feed themselves with their bottle if they're doing bottle drinking. And you can start to think about some sippy cup drinking at about 6 months. From 6 to 9 months, definitely when you're feeding your child, you want to see that anticipatory opening of the mouth. So even before the spoon gets to your mouth, your child is opening up their mouth and they're telling you they're ready. They should be able to clear the spoon with their upper lip. If you see that they're trying to pull it with their gums or they're really having a hard time, you need to lift the spoon against their top lip, then they may not be ready, or it may be a sign that they're having a little bit more difficulty with that spoon feeding. You can start with those dissolvable soft cookies and some of those lumpy solids in very small chunks, so you don't have to worry about choking hazards. And you can start straw drinking by about 9 months. At 10 months, you're going to start looking at mashed table foods. I know when I had kids, I used to puree whatever we were having for dinner. At that point, I already had started them on a lot of different foods. Generally, you start one food, you wait at least 3 days so that you can ensure that they don't have any allergies to that food. And by 10 months, you've gotten through a lot of those vegetables and fruits, and you're going to start adding meats. Liquids can be taken from a cup around 10 to 12 months. You should start to see that tongue working underneath that cup while they're drinking, and they should be able to have a controlled, sustained bite from a piece of food, like a cracker. They can bite with their teeth or their gums from that cracker or that food source. Generally, we want to add foods. You want to start with vegetables, then go to fruits. Fruits are much easier to introduce to your child. If you do it the other way around, you may have trouble introducing those vegetables because those fruits are too yummy. When you're introducing those solid foods, you want your children to be at least 4 to 6 months old. If you try to go younger than that, their mouth really is not organized to manage any of those solid foods until this time. Formula and breast milk meet all the nutritional needs up until this point. Starting solid foods earlier can lead to actually an increased risk to allergies. They may have a decreased overall nutrition intake because the formula and the breast milk is actually giving them the nutrients they need. And when you start to supplement with foods, they may get full with those foods and then not get the nutrients that they need. They have a potential for hypertension later on in life due to those increased sodium levels in the foods that we eat as older children and adults. And contrary to popular belief, introduction of solid foods does not help a baby sleep through the night. Really, your breast milk and your formula is all that your child needs. So let's talk about that progression again. Strain vegetables first, strain fruits. You can start with real fruit juices, grape juice, apple juice. Try to dilute it, add some water, introduce one food at a time, wait 3 days before introducing a second food. Start with 1 teaspoon, just 1 teaspoon, and gradually increase and work towards larger amounts of food. At 6 to 8 months, try teething foods such as feeding biscuits, dry toast, graham crackers. And this is a time when kids are going to be putting a lot of toys in their mouth, and that is A-okay. That really helps your child develop their oral skills to develop what they need for eating. Suck, swallow, a munching pattern, and then a rotary chew is what we expect to see develop with kids. As a child matures, try pureed and strained meats, and wait until a year to try eggs, yogurt, or cottage cheese.
Great. So feeding is a big issue when you first bring your baby home, right? So you're feeding them, you have an idea of how they're doing, they've gotten that down. The next thing a lot of parents think about, including myself with my own kids when I brought them home, is, well, what are they doing? So are they moving right? When are they supposed to roll? How come they don't like belly time? So let's talk a little bit about that, how we can promote that, positions you can utilize at home, you can talk to your physicians with if you're noticing that maybe they don't like belly time, and why can that happen, different things. So just to kind of go over some of the milestones when they're that newborn stage, so that 0 to 3 months, we really just want to look to see that they're utilizing both sides of their body. Are they moving both arms and legs? They're not going to look symmetrical, they're not going to look pretty, but those newborns are doing those kicks, they're doing those arm movements, they're kind of those tiny little chicken legs, sometimes you call them. Just make sure they're moving. Make sure they're both moving. As they progress towards 3 months, in between that 3 to 6 months, they then start to be what we call symmetrical. So by around 4 months, you want to look to see that your child is doing things on both sides. And this really goes from the age of 3 to 4 months all the way up until 12 months. We promote those big gross motor skills and doing both sides of their body. So we don't want to have a child only using their right hand. We want to make sure we're promoting things and presenting things on both sides. We're carrying them on both sides. And we'll go into a little bit more of that later. So that 3 to 6 month age, we want to see, are they turning their head to both sides of the body in different positions? Are they laying on their back? Are they following mom, dad, caregiver, face? Are they looking black and white is a big thing at this stage. So have them tracking them, turning both sides. Same thing on their belly, same thing when you're carrying them. They're starting to really become aware of their environment. Are they bringing hands to midline? This is a big one that I love to talk to parents about with those play gyms. So they're on the floor. Give them time out of a swing, out of a bouncy chair. Put them on the floor. Put them on the play mat. They're going to start to notice the toys. You'll see their hands come up in those sporadic movements, and then they will start to bring them in the middle of their body. Rolling is a big skill that starts between that 3 to 6 month age. You may see your child roll from belly to back. However, a lot of times they often roll back to belly first. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in the progression of rolling to be a more mature roll. Again, we want to watch that they do it both to the left and to the right. And then this is where they really start to sit upright and get a little bit more of that extension from belly time against gravity, sitting up, utilizing those back muscles, activating their core muscles. Around 4 to 5 months, a lot of babies, you can sit and prop their hands in front of them, prop their hands on their lap, put a toy in front of them that they can prop on. As they do this, they're now learning to activate the muscles in their core. I can sit up, I can see the world this way. And then they'll progress to an upright sitting position within that 6 months. This is also a big time frame where we start to see that kids will pull their knees up to their feet. They get their hands on their feet. They start to put their feet in their mouth, and all that is exploring, learning their body. Infants are born in that physiological flexion, so they're all tightened up and they're hunched over. And so what they have to do is get in these developmental positions to then elongate those muscles. So pulling their hands to their their feet to their hands and to their mouth is now stretching out those legs and getting them elongated. Spending time on their belly is stretching out all of those muscles in the front. And we'll go into belly time a little bit later as well. As we progress to 6 to 9 months, you want to start to see them moving a little bit more. So they're doing transitions in and out of sitting. They're getting onto their hands and knees, on their belly or hands and knees. They start moving forward. They start spinning in circles. All of these transitions then lead up to between that 9 and 12-month stage where they're now doing what we call pre-gait skills. So they're now moving. They're pulling up to stand at surfaces. You see them stand up at the couch. They move side to side on the couch. Maybe they let go of the couch, turn and hold on to a coffee table or an ottoman. They're starting to let go a little bit as they're playing, as they're holding things in their hands. And all of these are working towards them strengthening the muscles they need to then take independent steps. And independent steps can happen, the average is 12 months. It can be typical up to, 15 months, 16 months. Some kids take until 18 months, but really if they're getting towards 18 months and not walking, that may be something you want to discuss with the pediatrician. As they do start walking, they really do what we call this toddler gait. So some people will say, well, they don't bend their knees. They walk like Frankenstein, and that's okay. So they're utilizing their trunk, their ankle, their hips. They're learning balance. They're building the stability in their muscles. You might see their hands up, and that's because this is what they use for their stability. So if you put your hands up, you're going to feel more stable. If I fall, I can catch myself. They're learning all of that, and that's typical. As they progress, you want to definitely have them on different surfaces, on the grass. The sand at the beach is a great place for these new walkers to go. And then they progress to stairs. You can hold their hand. They'll walk up and down the stairs. As we get closer to age 2, they should be doing that more independently, holding a railing, and then running. So between that 18 to 24 months, now that they're stable walking on their feet, you want to encourage them to increase their speed, chase the balls, kick the balls. All of those will help them progress in their milestones.
I think one of the things that I like to think about in these ages too is now that kids are in car seats, they spend a lot of time in car seats. I'm old enough to know when my kids weren't in car seats. And so when I went into the grocery store, I didn't carry my child in a car seat into the grocery store. I carried them into the grocery store. And that makes my child work. It makes them figure out how to hold on, how to gain balance in my arms. Those are important skills. So I caution everybody about your car seats. They're really wonderful in the car and they keep your child safe, but we don't want our kids to be spending too much time in their car seats. Take them out, carry them yourself. That is a great way to help your kids build those skills.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so we do have some videos we want to share with you. The first one we have, so one of the things we often see, and even parents will ask and they'll call us, I'm coming in because my 2-year-old walks on their toes. Okay, well, let's talk about it. There's a couple different reasons that we could have toe walkers. Maybe they've been up on their toes since they initially started pulling the stand, and so now they've developed a tightness in the muscle. But why are they up on their toes? So toe walking is never really typical. Initially, when the 9 to 12-month-olds will start pulling the stand, you may see them go up and down as they're exploring their environment. They're learning how their body works. If it's a consistent thing, it's definitely something that you would want to address with your pediatrician because it really is never something that we would typically want to see. And the sooner that we can kind of figure out why they're doing toe walking, then we can address the underlying cause. Let's take a look at the video, and hopefully you can all see this. So there's a little girl here. One of the big components of toe walking is that their weight is now forward. I'll let the video play. So they have her walking backwards to promote that weight on her heels versus up on her toes. So you can see here she's up on her toes a little bit more. And really that shifts all of their weight forward. And so our goal is to really get that weight back, make them comfortable, make them feel more balanced and stable to then walk with a flat foot position. As they get flat on their feet, now you can see she's doing some balance, and that can help promote those balance strategies that the little one then needs to be able to walk with her heels down. Some of the other reasons that can lead to toe walking could be a sensory component. Maybe they don't like the feeling of the grass or a hardwood floor or a carpet on their heels, and that can be addressed through occupational therapy as well as physical therapy. And there can also be a vision and vestibular component. So something you may want to discuss with your pediatrician that doesn't always come up at visits At least definitely when I took my kids, they didn't always ask, but I kind of noted about vision. Do we feel like that they're seeing everything correctly? Do they know where their own body is in space? Are they always moving up on their toes and not really calming down or sitting down? So those are definitely reasons that can lead to toe walking that we can address in various therapies as well. The next video over here is just a 17-month-old kind of working on gross motor skills. So this little guy is pretty close to being fairly typical. And so one of the things we're working on is going down the stairs. Around 16 months, they may hold your hands walking up, but now we want them to safely get down. And they're not quite ready at that age to walk down the stairs. So things like turning on their belly and climbing down the stairs. This can be for when they're on the couch. So now they're tall enough to climb on the couch, and we want to make sure they don't fall off. So teaching them to progress to going on their belly. So this little guy is holding on to go up. And then one of the strategies that you can utilize at home too is have them walk up and down sideways. So this promotes development of those muscles on the outside of their hips, and that is great strengthening to then promote balance and stability, standing and shifting on one leg, starting to kick a ball as they get between that 18 and 24 months. Okay, so Sandy talked a little bit about holding a baby and different positions to hold a baby, and it transitions as they progress and get older. So one of the positions that you can do almost immediately is that first one, that Superman hold. So holding the babies on their belly. One, it promotes belly time, so now it allows the child to work their head against gravity and those back muscles. By a month old, we really should start to see some neck extension. So if they're laying flat on the ground at 0 degrees, can they lift it up 45 degrees, so halfway? Can they hold that for a little bit of an extended time? Do they need breaks? This is a great way to promote that strengthening as you're holding them and giving them that comfort as well. The football hold, upright unsupported hold, so as they progress to being able to hold their head up, we want to start to hold them sideways a little bit. In that 4th month, we develop a head righting reaction. So if you tip your body, you should see your baby's head come up so they look straight. Doing this to both sides, utilizing their lateral trunk muscles, their neck muscles on both sides. This is a great way to carry them. Facing out is good. It promotes them to engage in their environment, visual tracking, looking around them. As they get a little bit older, you don't have to support them quite as much, but again, looking out, just looking at their environment, seeing what's out there, all of that is really going to help develop those skills to then do the transitions on the floor, progress to pulling up to stand and to walking.
I think one of the biggest things that you want to think about is don't always hold your baby the same way. Give them lots of experiences. Sometimes you do want them to face you. Then they're gaining eye contact, they're learning to be social with you, they're reacting to your facial reactions. So there's positives to facing your baby away from you and letting them see what's going on in the environment, but also looking towards you and getting the cues from you about how they should react to things.
Okay, so one of the biggest questions I get as a physical therapist is about tummy time. Why do I need to do tummy time? Why is it important? When do I need to start it? My baby doesn't like tummy time. I just don't do it then because I don't want them to cry. So tummy time is absolutely important. So it's great to, talk about it with your physician. I educate my families that I see in the clinic on how we can get tummy time even when it's upsetting for the infant. We, like I kind of have said before when we were pulling our feet up to our hands, we want to allow babies to elongate the muscles in the front of their body. They're born all crunched up, and we need them to get those muscles working, elongate them. We also want to strengthen their head muscles. So think about it. A baby's born, the head weighs the most on their whole body when they're a newborn, and we now want them to lift it against gravity. They may not love it, but this is the way they can develop the muscles to then progress towards sitting, towards crawling, visually tracking. We also want them to do belly time so they get weight in their arms. So as infants put weight in their arms, they shift weight over. The picture of the little guy shows him shifted onto his left side, reaching with his right side. That's going to promote stability around the shoulder to then allow for them to push up through their hands, to allow them to get onto hands and knees and crawling. This in turn can then lead to strength for doing activities like handwriting and things like that as well. We also allows them to get sensory input and to really work on those fine motor skills. As they're on their belly, they're pushing up, we're opening our hands, we're developing those arches in the hands, we're getting feedback through the hands, and that's all great to help develop all of those skills for in the future. It also mentions to help develop skills to coordinate the eyes for those higher level visual skills. So this is a different position that they're utilizing that vision with. So again, my baby doesn't love tummy time. There's definitely some things we can do. They're going to adjust. They just need practice. Tummy time is something that you can do right away when they come home. A newborn should be able to lift enough to clear their nose and look side to side. So awake time, and when they're awake and supervised, on their belly is a great position for them, as much as they can tolerate. It can be 2 minutes at a time, and next hour you do 5 minutes. That's okay. We just want to make sure that they get a good amount of time, as much time as they'll tolerate, on their belly. You can definitely start with them on your chest. So when you bring home that infant, you're laying down on the couch or in a recliner, you can prop pillows up, have them on their belly on your chest. They can start to lift, respond to your voice, look at your voice. They're starting to tolerate that time a little bit more. When you're walking like that Superman hold, you can carry them on their belly, support them. It gives them time to work on that neck extension and visually track in that position. You can use your lap as a support. You can use a pillow, a rolled blanket, a Boppy. We do have a video of a little guy on a Boppy. So I love educating parents about Boppies. Boppies are great. You can use them for nursing. You can use them for positioning on the belly. You can put them around your little one as they start to sit. So then when they fall over, they have a little bit of a cushion as they're learning how to sit and how the reactions with when to catch themselves in falling. This little guy is 3 months old. So he's propped up on a Boppy, weight through his forearm. So you don't want to have their arms hanging over the front. You want to really get those weight through the shoulder, through the arms, up through the shoulders to promote all that development in their back and neck. And really just using a toy, using your face, sometimes a family pet. Siblings are great for having in front of the little guys to get them to really look up. You want to track both sides. As they progress and get a little bit older, this guy's around 7 months, I believe. So now we're off of that stage of being on a Boppy, elevated. He's down on the floor, doing more tummy time. You can see he's pushing through his hands, so he's open palms now at this point. His elbows are extending out a little bit. He will then start to push up. Yep, so you'll start to see the little guys then move. They'll move in circles. They'll start to negotiate their environment, and this will get them all ready for then pushing up on hands and knees, and then crawling, creeping as well. A couple more gross motor skills that we can talk through. So rolling. One of the things in that 3 to 6 month period is to really look at rolling. He's not so happy, so he's rolling to his right side. And you can kind of see he kind of brings his legs over and his body as one. There we go. On this side, he brings his legs, then his trunk. You can see that use of the lateral muscles. And his neck as well. We can play that again so you can see that. It's a little bit quick. So when he rolls the first video, he has trouble lifting his head, putting his arms underneath, and he doesn't love it. The next slide you'll see, you can see those legs come over, his trunk comes over, and then followed by his head. His legs come up, his trunk, and then his head. And it's more natural for him to do that. For sitting, so this is some transitioning. So as your little one starts to sit in 6 months, perfect it by the end of that 6th into 7th month, we now want to see a transition. So she goes from sitting into what we call a side sit, into her hands and knees, and then back to sitting again. Here we go. We can watch that again. And these transitions are so important for them to start negotiating their environment, being able to get to surfaces to start to pull up, to utilize their leg muscles a little bit more, and then to progress towards walking. Here we go. And again, with rolling, with transitions, you want to promote to the left and to the right. We don't want to over-strengthen one side, and then the opposite side doesn't get all of that strength and becomes weaker. So promoting to the left and to the right is a big thing for that 0 to 12 months. We can look at some crawling. So he doesn't love it, but we're putting him on there for a little bit, making him feel the position, really work those muscles for a minute.
And getting to mommy is the reward.
Using a parent, a caregiver as a motivation is definitely works. So now this little one is progressing further. So she's actually starting to put a foot up in that half kneel position, which she will transition to stand. She was on hands and knees. She's now up on her knees and using more of that core. And then here's a little guy that is crawling hands and knees, reciprocal. So we do our left arm, our right leg, go back and forth, progressing to that half kneel to stand as well.
Crawling is such an important stage for so many different things. In crawling, your child's going to learn what we call that bilateral coordination. They're two sides of their body working together. And believe it or not, this bilateral coordination is the foundation for so many other skills. Our vision requires bilateral coordination, things that we're going to need in kindergarten and first grade. And our ability to think requires bilateral coordination. So when a child in first grade has to write on a writing prompt about a cat, they need to think about the language in one side of their brain and creativity and writing possibly in another area of their brain. And so that bilateral coordination is key, and crawling is that foundation that is just so important.
And even if you think gross motor skills that could progress from crawling, so as they get to be 3 and 4 and you want them to step and throw a ball with that opposite upper and lower extremity, as they start to ride a bike, that pedaling, that reciprocal movement, all of this stems from that crawling on hands and knees, that creeping where they're getting that reciprocal bilateral movement. Okay, so we talked a little bit as we've gone through this about the progression to walking, but around that 9-month age, you want to have play tables, couches, present them with opportunities to pull the stand, to hold on to the objects for support. When they're standing, we want them to start bouncing, dancing. A lot of kids, if you tell them to dance, they start bending their knees and moving up and down. That's all promoting that development in their leg strength. They're going to start to what we call cruise, so furniture walks. They're walking along the couch, between a couch and a toy, a couch and a coffee table, an ottoman. We now want them to start to lower themselves. So initially, they'll let go and kind of plop down, and that's okay as they're developing their leg strength. We want them, as they get closer to that 10 months, 11 months, 12 months, that they can now support themselves, lower themselves down. They then start taking those alternate steps with support. They're holding your hand. They're holding 2 hands, 1 hand. They're walking with some of those toys, what we like to call them push toys, where they can walk around and push them on the wheels. You can do things like having them hold a hula hoop. And so you hold one side, you hold another, hold a towel. Sometimes they just need to feel like they're holding something, but then they can take those independent steps. We want to start to see them let go, present toys in both hands. So as they're holding a play cup in one hand, you give them a ball or you give them a ring in the other. They let go. They're comfortable to do that. We mentioned walking with one hand held. They're now going to start to pick up toys from the floor. So drop things. If they fall down, don't pick them up for them. Allow them the opportunity to utilize their strength and their own development and thinking skills of how can I get down there and pick that up and then come back to the top and play. And then as they start to walk independently, they'll get rid of that Frankenstein walk we talked about earlier. So you'll start to see their feet come closer together, and they'll walk with a little bit more knee bend, a little bit more typically.
And things like dropping things to the floor teaches us other things like depth perception with our eyes. We figure out, wow, how far away is that? Can I get it? Can I not get it? Also, give your child the time to problem solve how to do it. Don't bail them out right away. This is an age where they're starting to learn what we call those executive functioning skills. And those are important skills for later on when they get to school. So we start to build those skills really early when they're starting their gross motor skills. So let them figure it out.
And one of the things I like to tell my parents too is it's okay if they fall. So have them on the carpet, put couch cushions down. Learning to fall is a way they develop some of their skills as well. How can I catch myself? How do I get back up? It's okay if they fall down.
Okay, so we want to talk about skills that impact our play and help us to develop that growth and development. So I talked a little bit earlier about bringing those objects to our mouth. Kids are going to take all kinds of things and put them in their mouth. And one of the things that you want to do is just make sure they're big enough so they can't swallow them. But having things go in their mouth is actually really important. You see the little girl here, she's got a play coin from the pig and she's putting it in her mouth. And when she's shoving it in there, she's learning about, how far back can the food go? Where are things in my mouth? I'm learning different tactile information about the toy going into my mouth. So it's really an important skill to be able to let your child play with things and put them in their mouth. You want them to be able to transition to all different kinds of positions. They shouldn't be staying in static positions to play. Can they sustain their attention? Are they going from one toy to the next toy to the next toy? Or can they play and bang those coins to the pig repeatedly? It's okay for kids to have lots of repetition. That's the way they're going to learn. The other thing you want to see is, can your child calm themselves independently? Do they still need you to pick them up as they get a little bit older? Certainly by 2 years old, they should be able to start to calm themselves and not need you to calm them. They want to start finger feeding. That is a great way to develop some of your fine motor skills. Those Cheerios, first they start grasping with their whole hand, maybe near their little pinky, but soon they're going to learn how to pick up those Cheerios with just their index finger and their thumb, and that's going to help them to develop some really important hand skills that they're going to need down the road. They're going to start to play with others and recognize that there are others right there in the play area. Can they play with some of their siblings? Can they play with you? Do they make eye contact with you? Are they taking your lead? If you're clapping and singing, are they bouncing up and down to the tune, or are they not really paying attention to what's going on? That's really a signal that maybe something isn't going exactly right when they're not paying attention to you during that play. Are they imitating motions or sounds? It might not be ba ba, but you could do some inflection like ah, wah, wah. That could be the beginning of language for some kids. So, it doesn't have to be ba ba or da da, but it could be lots of different sounds that you're, mimicking with the child, going back and forth. That's starting to teach them that language is a back and forth kind of thing. Allow them to explore new textures, all different kinds of toys with different kinds of textures. That's a great way to help develop their sensory systems. Play with your child from the beginning. Use rattles, help them follow it with their eyes, help them learn how to roll their head back and forth by following that rattle. Have them isolate the sound from where the rattle came from. Can they connect the sound with what's going on with their vision? Our vision is really that sensory system that's the check for all the other sensory systems. And if it's not giving us the right check, that can mean giving us wrong information about where our body is in space and how fast or slow we're going. Use big expressions when you're playing with your child. Big smiles, clap, be super happy, or pretend to be super sad, but really help to show them the differences in the emotions. Toys that are great to play with are 1-inch blocks, balls. Use social games. You don't always need toys. Play things like So Big, hide and seek. You can play hide and seek when you're dressing in the morning as you're starting to dress them, so they can start to build some skills to pull their own shirt off their head. Use their baby blanket to play hide and seek. Use songs where you have to clap your hands. That's a great way to build those skills. Start to participate with short periods of quiet time so they start to learn some of those skills to be independent. Have them help play schemes that are imitative. So they feed the baby, they cook the food. Try to play through visual and auditory distractions. If they can't visually, if they're distracted by everything visually in the room, that's a sign that maybe something isn't exactly the way it should be. Build with blocks, other simple construction toys. Scribble with crayons to draw lines, and match shapes to start with puzzles. Here is an example of a 10-month-old playing. And she can't really put the toys in yet, but she's figuring it out. And we bang. Banging is a big part of play in the beginning. So what should we look for in our speech and language skills? In the beginning, we need to look for coos and gurgles. Their cries are going to be varied. They should be able to recognize your voice. By 6 to 12 months, you're going to start to wave bye-bye. You're going to see some of that babbling. They might recognize some words, and they try to imitate some of your speech patterns, even though they don't have all the words. They start to follow commands by 12 to 18 months. They respond to their name. That's a big one. They shout to get your attention. They use maybe 6 to 10 words by 18 months. They should be able to engage in that verbal turn-taking. They should start to use words socially. They answer yes and no and begin to use two-word phrases. Here are some of the speech sounds that you may see at all the different ages. So what can you do if you have concerns about your child development? Talk to your pediatrician. Have a two-way discussion. Bring in those questions that you need. Reach out to an early intervention group in your area and medically based providers for an evaluation. You can contact us with questions. In Northern Virginia, we're the Children's Therapy Center. In southeastern Pennsylvania and in Delaware, you contact TheraPlay. And out in western Pennsylvania, contact Positive Steps.
And this just mentions a little bit about our companies and, you know, what separates us from maybe an early intervention. We do individualized treatment. We have the team-based approach. We love team. We keep everybody involved, the parent, the pediatrician, any specialists on your child's team that may need to be involved, a feeding specialist, any orthopedic, anything that we may need. We give at-home exercise programs for all of our families. We take most primary insurances. We also take some Medicaid insurances as well. You can contact the specific centers and they can give you information. And really, we just love to play. So promoting that typical play, giving families and parents and caregivers ideas on how they can do purposeful play, engage the child, promote those developmental skills, especially in the first year of life. That's so important. Okay, so we're going to go to questions. We have a few minutes that we can take some questions if anybody has them. Let's see if there's any. I believe you can type questions in if anybody has questions. And we'd be more than happy to answer if anyone has a specific question or just a general question. I know we went through speech fairly quickly, so if anyone has any speech and language questions, we can definitely help you with those as well.
So again, we're having a little bit of a technical difficulty in getting some of those questions up. We can talk a little bit more about play. Certainly, play is not something that every parent knows how to do. And sometimes you have to take the lead from your child. What are they doing? What are they enjoying? That banging that you saw one of the babies do, that is a beginning step to learn what to do with toys. And sometimes, you know, what you can do is just bang the toys back. Maybe while you're making dinner, I know that's one thing that I used to do. I had my pots and pans right next to where I was going to be cooking, and I would give my kids a wooden spoon and pull the pans all out of the cabinet, and they would bang that spoon on the pans, and maybe we would sing and dance while we were cooking dinner. You have to be creative. Sometimes if you're working all day, you come home, you feel like you don't really have the time to spend playing with your child, but you can do a lot of different things while you're getting done those routines that you need to get completed. Another thing that kids love is water play. So while you're getting those dishes ready for the dishwasher, fill the sink up. Let your child pat and bang in the water. Let them get wet. That is a different texture. It's teaching them, you know, that they're going to get wet, that they may get splashed in the face. You know, they can stir with a spoon again. There's a lot of things they can do within water play. You can fill it up with bubbles, blow the bubbles. And that's teaching them some oral motor skills. So there's a lot of things that you can do within the play, you know, within whatever you're doing. When you're cleaning, put some music on, bounce them in your arms while you're running the vacuum cleaner. There's so many different things that you can do to promote that play. So if anything if you do have future questions, you can certainly email us. go to our website, and you can email any of the staff from our websites. And we do have a second presentation coming again on June 13th, and that will discuss development from ages 2 to 5. We're so glad that you joined us today. And like I said, we're always here for you if you have concerns. Take care and have a great day.
One thing we wanted to quick mention is that you can get a copy of the presentation in the handout section of the control panel, so you can have access to the presentation today. And thank you. And like Sandy said, have a great day.